Castro flounders in Friday night stream. It was another late-night live stream for Jose Chili de Castro Friday night into Saturday morning as he gathered around 100 of his most ardent supporters for a 3-hour mess of a live stream centering on anti-police videos and a trifold giveaway that failed badly. De Castro started the show by announcing that he would give away 8 of his indestructible trifolds during the show to anyone who needs them. The catch, of course, was that he wanted to fund the giveaways with sales of his trifold product, a daunting task as he only had a handful of his supporters in the room, averaging around 110 people, and most of them already had trifolds. The YouTuber sweetened the deal by claiming that he would throw in 2 extra trifolds and a set of 5 ACOP cards per order, along with giving away the extra trifold to another viewer with each sale. De Castro's goal was 10 trifolds, funded by 10 sales, but only gave away 8 trifolds from an unknown number of sales during the 3-hour stream as De Castro blamed his shadow banning by YouTube for his failure and turned his attention to his release by Christmas constitutional law scholar board game to bring him relief. He says he's working morning, noon and night on the product, which has been described as a wall board game and a modular board game, with the price point being $25 per module. He also has a feeling that the product will take the world by storm and bring him riches beyond his wildest dream. Doing the math, and discounting De Castro's wildly fantastic claims that he'll get the product in big box stores by the holiday, if De Castro sold 1 unit to each of the 100 people who attended his live stream, he'd make a cool $2,500. That is, of course, before taxes, manufacturing costs, distribution costs, etc., and that's only if the same room, who failed to buy 10 trifolds for the hour at a similar price point, goes all in and buys his game. We guess weirder things have taken the market by storm. I mean, we've been told that the pet rock once took the pre-internet world by storm in the 1970s when life was boring and bleak and filled with angst to the point of cuddling a pet rock brought some happiness. As it stands now, without seeing the product, we aren't as convinced as De Castro that this product launch will bring him the fame, fortune and meaning to live he thinks it will. De Castro turned his attention to his health and shared that until he got food poisoning on Thanksgiving, he said that was eating candy and unhealthy foods based on his time in jail earlier in the year. He thanked his fans for supporting him as he was in jail as the food was garbage, but it left with addicted to candy and unhealthy foods that he was working on breaking as he was fat now. Rounding out his broadcast, he claimed that he was shadow banned by YouTube, which resulted in his performance of 120 viewers at the peak of the broadcast. He made the statement that he used to regularly get between 1,000 and 1,500 live viewers during his broadcast, a questionable claim at best. De Castro did not livestream on Saturday but is expected to go live later today.
Floyd Wallace lashes out at fans for lack of donations. Floyd Wallace went live on Saturday with a blunt statement for his fans. They haven't helped enough. He was down to a few $100s, and things were bleak as he was planning to save money by taking his next sexual conquest to McDonald's on a date later in the evening. He lashed out at his fans in his side chat, mercilessly banning longtime channel member Snow Travels for giving him a hard time in his side chat. He raged at the user, saying that he'd pay him back the money he owed him on his next YouTube payday and be finally done with him. Snow Travels, of course, was back in the room with a sock account within moments. Then Wallace reconsidered as Snow Travels as one of his main sources of income and unbanned him. In his anger, Wallace lashed out at his fans for the expectation that he should know Spanish in a Spanish-speaking country. He said that he tried to learn Spanish on his live streams by using a gaming-style learning app, but everyone complained that it was boring and not good content to feature. The YouTuber reminded his fans that he had learning disabilities and that he needed incentive to stick with anything long-term. In this case, donations from his fans to learn Spanish, to go out to clubs, and to meet women. Otherwise, he'd be content to lie in bed while live streaming. Wallace eventually was again angered by lack of funding from his fans. He tried to counter the lack of excitement in the room by offering strange things like various amounts for cold approaching women at a nightclub later in the night. Wallace went as far as to promise he'd get at least 3 numbers from women before giving up. After no takers for either offer, he soon offered immunity from banning and mod status to anyone for a year for an $80 donation to his Cash App. He got at least 1 pledge from that offer, And eventually, with the $100 needed to go to a club later in the night, he appeared to pledge that he would live stream from a club later that night. Of course, Wallace apparently decided not to go out later in the night, and the live stream disappeared from his channel and has been marked as private. Wallace would later release a blog featuring a bad date. He offered minimal commentary and no indication of what it was a date deemed bad. Wallace's only real commentary made it clear that he didn't pay his date to clean his Airbnb, as she volunteered to clean before he let her play on his VR headset. The rest of the video consisted of the pair waiting for her ride home, with Wallace uttering "what the fuck" as the video ended, leaving most of his fans to ask the same question. Wallace is expected to live stream again later today. Long Island audits flatlines at mid-month. Perhaps Jose "Chili DeCastro" was onto something the other day when he said that he hated trying to do fundraisers between Thanksgiving and Christmas, as the mid-month figures are in for the First Amendment auditing campaigns we follow, and things are bleak at best. December is the time of giving, as people turn to the holidays to show their love for their family, appreciation for those they work with, and share kindness with strangers in hopes that their holidays are a little brighter with donations towards organizations to help the poor and unhoused. That kindness, it seems, does not extend to First Amendment auditors. Getting it out of the way first, our own ongoing expenses campaign leads the pack for the mid-month through some incredible donations by our viewers. Our hate watcher especially wants to torture us, as they're keeping both the YouTube channel and the newspaper alive with their contributions, all in the name of torturing us, by forcing a new column devoted to the wonders of GoFundMe each month. We have been thankful for contributions from everyone with $585.00s at mid-month, and are well aware that it was a one-time deal. We'll put the contributions to good use after a couple of Xmas gifts for our family, and renew some items early this year in hopes to stave off a mid-spring fundraising drive. That said, from there, things fall off a cliff as far as fundraising goes. The Angry Vet has pulled in $20 for the month. He's in second place and matches the $20 he pulled in for last month. Third place is a tie between Craig Hendry's to support Craig's work, campaign, and Long Island audits, support the fight against tyranny and corruption campaign, both at $10. We don't have a top 5, as the last entry stops at position 4, with a $5 donation to Long Island Audits, Support Freedom Stand Against Tyranny Together campaign, and that is literally it for the mid-month. A lot of it is due to the holiday season and people putting money into presents for friends and family. We think that contributions may pick up after Christmas, as the pending need for gift buying has people with a few extra bucks find something to contribute to. The auditors themselves aren't helping, as most have either been inactive, running old content, or simply ignoring the campaigns that they themselves have set up to help with dire needs by not promoting them. We've harped before, we'll harp again. If you're truly in need of help, you need to ask for help. If you're truly in need of a goal that relies on funding from the public, you need to promote that goal. People will not contribute if they don't know that you need help, and it's on your shoulders to say something and bust your ass to at least get the word out about your plight. Craig Hendry has a social media team in place. He has Chili DeCastro supporting him. He has a girlfriend who has done live streams in the past. He has people running his various YouTube channels. Falling from $885 taken in for November to $0 for December is mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense, and it's an example of a complete failure on someone's part to get the word out that Craig actually needs help. Long Island Audits, on the other hand, let's face it, he doesn't need the money. His 7 active GoFundMe campaigns are just a second serving of chocolate fudge on his triple chocolate cake with 7 layers of icing and sprinkles. His lack of effort is noticeable, as he doesn't need the cash, and his funding is being kept alive by people who do drive-by donations. Everyone else? God only knows. It's just not happening. We had goose eggs for the 4th or 5th consecutive day on Saturday. We'll probably have goose eggs again on Sunday. And if we get to Tuesday and goose eggs, we may be able to finally end this column once and for all. Oh, joyous times. Just a few days away. Merry holiday to each and every one of you.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day. We do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
DeCastro claims control over diet and cop watch return. In what can only be called a planned show of force, Jose "Chili" DeCastro gathered a large group of his followers for his Sunday night live stream, doubling the size of his recent outings and pledging that the old Chili was back. Sadly, DeCastro peaked at 350 viewers for essentially his pre-show, as he played a best of audits video for most of the first hour. While he managed to double the size of Floyd Wallace's recent outings, and double plus that of his own disastrous Friday into Saturday live stream, he couldn't come close to the numbers put up by rival Lane Myers, who routinely draws 700 people for his near-daily events. DeCastro's focus for the evening was to announce that since getting food poisoning at Thanksgiving last week, he was able to reevaluate his life and take control of his diet. While we note that Thanksgiving was actually around 18 days ago, hardly last week, we didn't belabor the point as he pledged that the old Chili was back. Because he could now control his diet, which he blamed on the sugary foods that people sent him in gift baskets while he was in the clink at the Clark County Detention Center last year. Not that he was complaining, he made it clear, but that he was apparently ashamed of his body and becoming fat for him, and now that he could control his diet he could go on cop watches and audits again. His prepared comments were interrupted by the appearance of David Chavez, aka Riverside County Accountability, who was arrested around a year ago in California and took a plea deal in June based on his auditing activity. Chavez was released from jail on Saturday and DeCastro warmly invited him up on panel. Chavez was part of the so-called Freedom 8 lead by activist Eden Alex Enamorado, who essentially sparked a group task force of local and federal police when he showed he had the ability to gather large groups of people to protest at the homes of his enemies. As he joined DeCastro on air, he said he copped a plea deal for pepper spraying a random man during one of these large gatherings. He had a 2-year felony sentence, got credit for 6 months of time served while waiting for trial, then served out the last 6 months without incident. Chavez said he was currently locked out of his Riverside County Accountability YouTube channel, and DeCastro asked his fans to donate an old iPhone to Chavez to help him unlock his account. DeCastro attempted to get jail credibility by talking over Chavez's experience, claiming that the lockup facilities at the Cook County Detention Center were almost as bad as what Chavez went through. Eventually, Chavez grew bored with DeCastro, accepted DeCastro's offer to help him write up a demand for return of property document, and left. This should have been the exciting end of DeCastro's live stream, which was now down to 257 assembled viewers, but he continued to enthrall his viewers with the same old for the next 2 hours. In the end, he again promised that now that he could control his diet, he'd return to regular cop watching and live streaming. While we're convinced that he'll quit again once some horrible person notes his waddling towards officers, we're just as sure of his future successes with his pending board game, due to be released in big box stores in 8 days. Other notable observations during the nearly 4-hour broadcast included DeCastro's accusations that having police stationed in schools resulted in having more police having improper contact with children assigned to their care, with DeCastro's proof being whatever unsubstantiated proof he had during his investigations in Ironton, Ohio, years ago. Also of note was DeCastro's newer claim to have PTSD from his time in jail and his noting it took almost the same amount of time out of jail as the time he served in jail to fully mentally recover. He also claimed that he was supposed to file his latest lawsuit for wrongful imprisonment by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department over Thanksgiving, but was delayed, and that he'll file the lawsuit again soon. He's expected to be in the Las Vegas area over the Christmas and New Year's holidays. DeCastro will more than likely live stream again on Tuesday. Chavez has already been on a test run cop watch and plans to return to active First Amendment audits once he restores his YouTube channel. Carolina in Fort Worth calls BZ watchdog. YouTuber BZ Watchdog featured the second of his new series of ongoing calls with Carolina in Fort Worth Rodriguez, who is serving time in a local lockup in Fort Worth, Texas, after her conviction last week of interference. As noted, this was the second call between the pair as BZ Watchdog admitted that he misplaced his recording of the first call between the two, recorded Saturday. Sadly, typical of a BZ Watchdog production, Rodriguez's voice was muffled, and the call was cut short. In the brief call, Rodriguez was concerned about what the paper had said about her. BZ assured her that local coverage was fair with both sides featured equally. He also informed her that her frequent auditing partner, Manuel Mata, had his most recent court cases reassigned to the same court as Rodriguez. Mata made headlines last week as he attempted to intimidate witnesses in Carolina's case by acting aggressively towards the police officers involved in her arrest. He, along with Joe Cool and Harvey Freebird, were cautioned at least once by the judge during Rodriguez's trial and skipped her sentencing hearing completely out of fear of retribution from the court. Rodriguez currently is serving 30 days in county jail for an incident over the summer that saw her hospitalized after blundering into an active crime scene. Oblivious to her surroundings, Rodriguez was approached by Fort Worth police, who told her to leave the scene. When she refused, she was taken into custody. As she was being placed in handcuffs, she began to struggle with the officer and fell forward while the officer was applying force to her body. Rodriguez fell face first onto the pavement and was unconscious after hitting the ground. Rodriguez was briefly hospitalized after the incident, and planned mass protests failed to turn up the masses needed to sustain real change with the Fort Worth Police Department. While admitting no wrongdoing, the Fort Worth Police Department reassigned the officer involved in the incident pending the outcome of an investigation. According to BZ Watchdog's reporting, when offered a choice between 30 days of probation and 30 days of jail time, Rodriguez chose jail time as she'd be out sooner due to overcrowding. She also opposed limits on her First Amendment auditing that the probation would bring. BZ Watchdog filled out the rest of his 8-minute runtime of his latest video with an AI-generated country music song expounding on the legend of Carolina in Fort Worth. Rodriguez has stated that she'll be following up her conviction with a civil suit against the Fort Worth Police Department. The Angry Vet starts Holiday Scars fundraiser. Kevin the Angry Vet Soper's yearly donation drive for his Boost Scars mission for veterans and citizens took second place for Sunday as our own ongoing expenses campaign edged it out for the victory, pulling in $70 in donations to the Angry Vet's $60. Our win was essentially driven by a group of our fans being reminded that if the market puts up goose eggs for an entire week, we'd be free of writing this column forever. Out of their deep love for torturing the person who writes these columns, we haven't gone AI just yet. A group of viewers to the premiere of our last newscast banded together and assured us of torture for at least another week. Sometimes this column just writes itself. Soper's campaign being a bit more important than ours, as he says he's raising money for veterans and veterans issues that will be distributed through his The Servicemen and Citizens for American Rights Society, SCARS, organization. While he claims that it is an official nonprofit organization that is registered with the government, recent exposés by luminaries such as Dummy Kruger and our own digging have shown that it is not listed by the Internal Revenue Service as an official 501(c)(3) organization and does not currently have tax-exempt status. Soper's organization provides free legal services on top of everything else and has taken criticism as there are those who believe that Carolina in Fort Worth Rodriguez used its resources for her disastrous legal defense before her recent conviction of interference in Fort Worth, Texas. Whatever the case is, the organization's $60 in donations came in second to our own fundraising efforts for the day. No other campaigns recorded donations for Sunday. If you'd like to continue to our torturous time each morning writing this column as the very first thing we do, please pay attention for the next 30 seconds as we tell you how to join in on the fun.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day. We do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Craig Henry tops GoFundMe on eve of sentencing. Craig Henry's To Support Craig's Work GoFundMe campaign surged on Monday, following a direct appeal from the YouTuber to his fans following his latest audio address from jail at midday. In that address, Henry admitted no guilt as he faces sentencing today and continued the pattern of calling himself a political prisoner who is being jailed for others' actions. He took no responsibility for distributing the information to his fans or demanding his fans do the call flooding that resulted in his conviction of felony stalking and misdemeanor charges. Henry also expressed great outrage that the guards in the jail did not let him address them as bitches and put him in a segregation cell. He said it was his First Amendment right to address them, however he felt like addressing them, and called them out for not immediately giving him the paperwork explaining why he was put in segregation. He later became further outraged when he met with the jail commander, Jim Miller, and said that using the word bitches for the guards was just an expression, a mode of expression, brother, and received a negative response from Miller. According to Henry, Miller said, "I am not your fucking brother, so don't call me that," which, again, was described as an apparent attack on Henry's First Amendment rights in jail. Henry appealed to his fans to make donations to his GoFundMe and pay applications to help support the appeal and to think of his 7-month-old daughter and his 6-year-old son when giving. The link provided in the description of the video went to the wrong GoFundMe campaign, as the generic To Support Craig's Work campaign was featured instead of his Support Craig's Fight Against Injustice campaign, which was set up for his appeal in this case. Henry's To Support Craig's Work campaign surged on Monday, taking in $320 in new donations, including $50 from a man who dresses as his own grandma. The campaign won the GoFundMe crown for the day, with our own ongoing expenses fund taking in $70 and no other activity in the market. The YouTuber claims that he's facing up to 2.5 years in jail today at his sentencing hearing. However, the state of Indiana filed a motion for proposed credit to Henry's time served last week, along with a sentencing aggravator report which should concern Henry. While the sentencing aggravator report was not made public, in the state of Indiana, such a report can be used to justify a sentence length beyond the scope of normal sentencing guidelines. Some of the key factors that may come into play are Henry's extensive criminal history, his recent history of criminal behavior while being released on bond in other cases, his public statements accepting no blame for his conviction, and Henry's general attitude towards the current judicial process. Henry has vowed to appeal his conviction and will be filing his appeal post-sentencing.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Floyd Wallace releases bizarre date video. Floyd Wallace released a bizarre video Wednesday featuring his second date with a woman he previously featured in a video where she tried out his Meta Quest 3 virtual reality headset, and ending the video asking, "What the fuck?" The video started with Wallace apparently doxing a new Airbnb location, which was a single-bedroom unit with bathroom and no kitchen area or other amenities. He walked into the unit, silently panned the camera around, and inexplicably went into the bathroom to show the area under the sink and the shower. He then went out of his room to greet the woman and featured several of the same shot of her walking up and down flights of stairs towards him. The only words spoken came with his brief direction of her to stay in frame. The pair walked around outside and eventually went to a mall where Wallace's date appeared bored and was constantly looking at her phone. They went inside the mall to have lunch, and again, Wallace directed his date to mix her meal of meat and rice together on camera without saying anything. He cut in shots of himself wearing headphones and stuffing food into his mouth in silence. Again, no other narrative was provided, and the whole thing was poorly edited to the point where it seemed more like a badly staged travel event than a professional blog from a professional travel blogger. Wallace filmed a group of Christmas-themed singers walking past him in the mall and later filmed himself trying to cold approach one of the female singers, while supposedly on his second date with the other woman. From the Wallace and the woman returned to his single-roomed Airbnb, where Wallace was now clad in shorts and socks and sitting in bed. He had his camera focused on a Mexican 50 peso bill, a Colombian 1,000 and 2,000 peso bills, the equivalent to a $2.48, 23 cents, and 46 cents in United States currency. It is unclear if he was giving the money to his date as again. He offered no explanation for his actions. The video ended with Wallace giving the woman a pair of slippers and other toiletries before escorting her downstairs to catch a ride home. All in all, the controversial video may be part of a new retheming of Wallace's channel. The creep level is high if you take into account the shot of Wallace on a bed in just shorts and socks, and with what Wallace has previously claimed he does with dates before he takes them out. His fans weren't supportive at all of his video efforts, with most asking Wallace to explain the video. In more Tuesday morning news, Wallace's News Now Omaha channel featured a video filmed in Indiana of police arresting Wallace on camera. The video appeared to be old, as Wallace is still releasing videos while in Colombia and has no plans to return to the United States until after the new year. We will continue to follow the situation and provide updates if needed, but at this point it looks like there is simple confusion over an old video.
LVMPD rebuts summary judgment claims. The Las Vegas Metro Police Department responded on Monday to Jose Chili de Castro's response to their second motion for summary judgment, which is seeking to dismiss two of the claims made against them. While most of de Castro's case was dismissed between a ruling last year by Judge Andrew Gordon and the last summary judgment earlier this year, the issues at hand involve de Castro's arrest now that an appeals court threw out his conviction from the charges he was arrested for in Las Vegas back in March of 2023. De Castro's position is that the police had no right to arrest him now that the charges were thrown out. He also says he shouldn't have been searched because the whole arrest was unwarranted, and the search was then an invasion of his privacy. In this motion, the LVMPD is rebutting de Castro's reply to their motion for summary judgment. De Castro's counter-argument involves the conviction being overturned and also claims that the arresting officers do not have qualified immunity for the arrest and should be held financially liable for their actions. The LVMPD's response claimed that the arresting officer had every right to arrest de Castro for interfering with his crime scene. De Castro refused to follow commands at the scene, was obstinate and confessed that he had been arrested multiple times for the same sort of incidents. As for the search, it was part of the arresting process. Before de Castro, who had made threatening comments towards the officers and was already involved in a scuffle with the arresting officer, was placed in a police vehicle, a search was warranted by police procedure for the safety of everyone involved. The LVMPD also contended that even in a scenario where de Castro's arrest was made in bad faith, the arresting officer's immunity still applied under Nevada Revised Statute 41.032. NRS 41.032 states, "No action may be brought against any public officer based upon the failure to exercise or perform a discretionary function, whether or not the discretion involved is abused." Should the LVMPD succeed in their request for summary judgment on the set of charges, the arresting officers in the case will still face trial on de Castro's claims of excessive use of force. The trial is expected to be held in the spring of next year.
Carolina in Fort Worth gets released on PR bond. YouTuber BZ Watchdog brought word on his Monday night live stream that fellow YouTuber Carolina in Fort Worth Rodriguez was set to be released Monday night, as she was granted a personal recognizance bond while she appealed her sentencing. Again, according to BZ Watchdog's reporting, Rodriguez was initially given a choice between probation and jail time at her sentencing hearing and chose jail time, as it would be over faster. She spent the weekend in jail and then was summoned to see the judge on Monday morning. The decision may sound unusual to those outside of Texas, but in the state, misdemeanor offenders are given the option of doing jail time instead of taking probation. They literally have the choice to control their fate, and most choose jail time as it's often shorter and without the hassles or conditions of probation. In Rodriguez's case, she chose jail, and her 30-day sentence was reduced to 27 days for time served, then would be reduced further due to remodeling and overcrowding at the jail facility. She would have been released after a little over a week in jail and would not have to face the limits of probation. At Monday morning's hearing, the judge gave Rodriguez a PR bond, and it appeared that she would be free by midnight. BZ was unclear as to if her $700 fine was revoked when he spoke to Rodriguez, but assured her that her 15-month probation sentence would not start until after her appeal of the case was over. As part of the conditions of Rodriguez's bond, she reportedly cannot be within 25 feet of a crime scene or traffic accident. This would tend to interfere with her auditing, which is her full-time job, as her videos are essentially filmed at traffic accidents and crime scenes. BZ Watchdog featured a second voice recording of Rodriguez, who was a little easier to understand this time around. She seemed more concerned with telling her cellmate the updates and making sure her cellmate would be okay now that Rodriguez was leaving jail. Rodriguez agreed to give BZ Watchdog a ride to the hearing for Manuel Mata, which is scheduled to be held this morning in the same court that convicted Rodriguez. Craig Hendry sentenced to 548 days for stalking. Craig Hendry again dominated the GoFundMe market on Tuesday, though his dominance may continue as Hendry made a defiant statement Wednesday morning after being sentenced for felony stalking and misdemeanor harassment charges. Hendry called himself a political prisoner who was innocent of the crimes he was convicted of, as he had never directed anyone to harass or threaten anyone, and he had been threatened and harassed by an Orwellian government. Claiming to be a peaceful protester, Hendry indicated that he never directed anyone to be violent or aggressive. He maintained that whenever he audited, he was always respectful and peaceful in demeanor and never provided a threat to anyone, and said he didn't deserve the oppressive treatment he suffered at the hands of the government. Among the claims he made against the government came as he stated that he had been apprehended against his will, held for ransom, forced to urinate in front of others, and has been taken from his family, imprisoned unfairly under a system that no longer works. The YouTuber received 548 days in jail with 79 days credit for time served. Because he's serving time on a level 6 felony, he'll end up doing 6 months, as non-violent offenders currently get 2 days credit for every day served. He indicated that he would be seeking an attorney who specializes in appellate law, which is hard to find in Indiana, and he'll need financial support from his fans to fund his appeal. Hendry's to support Craig's work fund took in $100 for Tuesday and was the only fund that was active on Tuesday to take the GoFundMe crown for the day. That said, donations are expected to pour in following Hendry's release statement this morning.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
De Castro fails in return to daylight live streams. Jose Chili De Castro went live before noon Eastern on Tuesday in a pre-planned show of force that brought back such side chat luminaries as Jeff Hatespigs and Cope Dog, yet still couldn't outdraw nearly anyone else in the First Amendment auditing community during the afternoon hours. Even Floyd Wallace, who did not focus on First Amendment auditing during his first of 3 birthday-related live streams that started around the same time as De Castro, pulled in over 110 viewers for a livelier side chat and bigger overall draw of his viewers just from acting as himself. Wallace has just 4,830 subscribers on his channel and managed to pull in 110 viewers or 2.28% of his subscribers to his Tuesday broadcast at peak viewing. DeCastro managed to pull in 254 viewers out of his 624,000 subscribers or 0.04% of his total subscribers. While his total subscribers were lower, Wallace in his chaos managed to reach a bigger number of viewers than the supposedly more popular DeCastro channel. DeCastro shared more bad news as he told his audience that there are times when he can no longer afford to give out free physical copies of his trifolds unless the person who wants the trifold agrees to pay shipping and handling costs. Those costs run up to $11 under DeCastro's current shipping setup. Adding to the bad news for those that follow DeCastro, when Michael Aline came into DeCastro's side chat directly asking for DeCastro to set up a fundraiser for Carolina in Fort Worth Rodriguez's urgent appeal of her recent sentencing to 15 months probation, DeCastro flat-out declined. DeCastro, who is currently rebranding himself as the person who helps everyone when they're in trouble with the law, said that he wouldn't even consider helping until after Christmas. Despite recently breaking his personal rule of holding no fundraisers between Thanksgiving and Christmas recently for a Jeremiah Payne fundraiser, DeCastro ignored the plight of Carolina, who claimed she was savagely attacked by a police officer and then convicted of actions in the same incident. On more positive notes, DeCastro showed off that longtime missing fans were attending his late-morning livestream and promised that he was back and would be out confronting cops on the streets again next week. DeCastro was more vicious in his attacks on police officers, returning to his old mantras that he isn't God but wants most police officers to burn in hell. He also claimed that while he didn't hate his trolls, he knew that they openly masturbated whenever he said their names, so he would be withholding relief and that gratification from them by ignoring them on the broadcast. Strangely, with less than a week to carry through on his promise that he'd have his Constitutional Law Scholar board game in big box stores by Christmas, DeCastro downplayed the claims. In fact, DeCastro put more into selling his First Amendment trifolds than promoting his board game during the broadcast. It was a noticeable return to form, though DeCastro may have admitted that his market was severely limited when he asserted that most of the people attending his livestream already had copies of his product. This made it hard to follow who he was pitching the product to, as there really wasn't a need to make a second purchase if they already had the existing product. After pledging that he wasn't a beta male and a status quo loser, the YouTuber pledged that he'd be back on Wednesday with another early morning livestream.
Floyd Wallace exposed in Birthday Nightmare. It was a memorable 29th birthday for YouTuber Floyd Wallace as he live-streamed twice during daylight hours and rage quit both streams as his fans got him to admit that almost all of his encounters with women featured in his videos were pay-for-play. Wallace admitted during a panel portion of his first live stream that his demand for intimate relations from his dates before the actual date started is so successful because he bribed the women with goods and services. He stated that he often buys the women groceries or helps with other bills in exchange for the intimate interaction. The YouTuber says that it is his policy to receive some sort of intimate interaction with each of his dates to ensure that he had a good time before each date began. That way, if the actual date turned sour, he'd be able to go home happy as he was intimately gratified. How Wallace achieved his claimed success rate was always in doubt, as the majority of Wallace's dates do not speak English. Wallace has shown the extent of his dating prowess consists of him awkwardly filming each woman he dates while screaming "bueno" randomly at them, which has left more questions than answers for his viewing audience. When directly confronted by a panelist, Wallace broke down and said that as a man, you end up paying for everything, then admitted that it wasn't his charm that brought him intimate gratification from the women. It was groceries, help with bills, and other items. Wallace's admittance explained an awkward point in a recent video where Floyd was focusing in on Mexican and Colombian pesos while half-dressed and then gave a date a pair of slippers, toiletries, and an umbrella before dismissing the woman. It was an odd scene in an overall bizarre, silent movie, but now has meaning as it was apparently the woman's payoff for a second date with Wallace. Updating the situation surrounding Wallace's frequent video partner known as the Stud, Wallace said the woman was no longer talking to him. and had again blocked his number. He claimed that she had wanted to come do some work for him, cooking and cleaning, and he denied her services because she would have arrived and left his place too late, resulting in her anger. Wallace also claimed that the stud had moved and was now living over an hour away from him and no longer had a car. According to Wallace, the stud gave up her car earlier in the year after getting sick of having to do constant repairs on it. Because she no longer had personal transportation, it cost Wallace up to $60 each time to go see her, which he could no longer afford. In his second live stream of the date, marred by issues with his internet, Wallace said that he had a woman coming over who promised him sexual gratification for his birthday without payment. When asked by his chat to prove that the woman was of legal age, the age of consent is 14 for locals in Colombia, but 18 for foreigners. Wallace said that he had the girl send him a copy of her ID, which proved that she was 21. He showed no proof on camera and asked his fans just to trust him on the issue, after admitting to repeatedly lying to them about nearly everything else. Wallace ended up rage quitting the live stream after a long time. Supporter Snow Travels pressed Wallace to repay him the $100 owed to him that Wallace has been avoiding paying for over a month. We will provide coverage of Wallace's third live stream of the day in tomorrow's paper if Wallace does not remove the stream. Regan Benson outraged in Englewood again. YouTuber Regan Benson found a way around a ban from the Englewood, Colorado, City Council chambers on Monday to provide a statement during the public commentary portion of the City Council meeting. Addressing the council via Zoom, Benson wasted 30 seconds of her 3-minute speaking time arguing over Mayor Othniel Sierra's statement that she was from Denver by correcting him that her city was instead Rough and Ready, Colorado. She then went on to complain about what she claimed was corruption in the Englewood police force and her continued claims that Officer Edward Disner, who heads the Internal Affairs Division of the Englewood Police Department, was corrupt and refused to follow up on any of her complaints. Benson has been targeting Disner after another YouTuber from Englewood provoked Disner into threatening to personally sue the YouTuber after the YouTuber released Disner's information and led a brigading campaign against him. Despite Craig Hendry's recent conviction of felony harassment based on a brigading campaign of his own that turned threatening, Benson and others in the First Amendment auditing community still condone the practice as a way to show their power in the community. They state that while they provide the contact information, they are in no way responsible for the content of the messages their fans leave for their targets. Benson finished off her comments to the Englewood City Council by reminding the public that they can store their bicycles inside the Civic Center, as she recently saw council member and cult leader Joe Anderson store his bike there during a city council meeting. She also called for a professional dress code based on what City Council member Steve Ward was wearing, a baseball cap and jeans, before concluding her commentary. The YouTuber returned to live streaming Tuesday afternoon as she was accompanied by a woman identified as Jen as they went to place another complaint at the Englewood Police Department. Jen had previously been featured on an October 11, 2024, live stream with Benson, making the same complaint. Essentially, Jen was arrested in Englewood for violating a restraining order by a former partner. When she was arrested, her personal property was destroyed by the Englewood Police Department along with all evidence of her possessing narcotics during the arrest. Jen's case was eventually thrown out, and when she went to retrieve her property, she found that it had been destroyed due to Englewood's policy to destroy all belongings that are not claimed within a 30-day period. Jen opposed the policy as she spent over 30 days in jail and did not have the opportunity to claim said property. Tuesday's livestream was handled by Officer Jackson of the Englewood Police Department, who also handled the October complaint, who took a statement from Jen, then said he'd give it to Internal Affairs. Benson scoffed at the process as she again stated that the complaint would be ignored as Edward Disner ran Internal Affairs. Benson ended the recording by complaining about the ongoing Englewood policy that banned non-consensual recording within Englewood public buildings and having a brief complaint session with Jen in her Benson's car before ending the stream.
De Castro board game to miss Christmas 2024 launch. Jose "Chili" de Castro delivered a crushing blow to his fans during his Wednesday evening livestream as he explained that he would miss his Christmas deadline this year to release his Constitutional Law Scholar board game. The original concept of the Constitutional Law Scholar classes that eventually morphed into the idea of de Castro producing a wall board game was a great white whale of sorts for de Castro loyalists, with de Castro constantly missing self-announced deadlines to teach the class and now to produce the game for several years now. De Castro's original announcement of a Christmas release, along with his original claims that the board game would be finished in time to be in big box stores in time for that Christmas release, were scoffed at as even his true believers did not believe his claims. While initially blaming the delay in his board game's release on his incarceration earlier this year, de Castro has also stated that the jailing was the best thing to happen to him as he was able to use the time away from the world to help develop the game. Graphically describing at one point creating game tokens out of spit and toilet paper as he put an initial copy of the game together. De Castro gave some hope to his fans as he claimed that the game will be released a little after Christmas and that he would soon be taking pre-orders for the game. The YouTuber had previously announced that the game would be modular, with each module being sold at the $25 price point. It is unclear if de Castro will honor that pledge. Fans were also shocked when de Castro apparently admitted that his First Amendment Auditor rebrand was no longer happening as he would be keeping his main Delete Laws channel on YouTube. First Amendment Auditor was part of a series of failed rebrands de Castro embarked on during late October and mid-November before he briefly lost his main Delete Laws channel due to an alleged bombing involving graphic male-based adult material. The brief loss of his channel apparently reminded de Castro of how much money his main channel brings in each month and resulted in his recommitment to it as his other channels do not make enough revenue for a permanent departure from his Delete Laws branding. De Castro's Wednesday night livestream otherwise focused on de Castro's apparent ongoing obsession with body cavity searches. He spent most of the stream arguing with ChatGPT over the legality of body cavity searches and bemoaning the Supreme Court's decision not to review the practice. The YouTuber is expected to live stream again later today and has promised that he will be holding daily cop-watching events in Las Vegas next week as he visits his family for the Christmas holiday.
Craig Henry flooded with donations post-conviction. Self-proclaimed political prisoner and innocent man, Craig Henry received a financial windfall on Wednesday following his announcement that he was sentenced to over a year in prison after his felony stalking conviction. Henry's post-sentencing appeal to his fans saw his, to support Craig's work, GoFundMe campaign receive $1,130 in new donations, including 2 donations from a man who dresses like his own grandmother for the day, surpassing all other campaigns that we follow by a wide margin and taking the lead for the month away from our own ongoing expenses campaign. His campaign, which wasn't originally set to handle donations for Craig's appeal, is unique as it's getting donations while the campaign that Henry set up to handle the appeal, support Craig's fight against injustice, has gone 23 days without a donation. The difference between the two campaigns comes as the To Support Craig's Work fund has been featured in all of Henry's recent post-conviction addresses and on Jose "Chili" de Castro's live streams, while the other has not. Liberty Trolls support the fight for our constitutional rights. Campaign came in second for the day with a $50 donation, followed by the Angry Vets Boost Scars Mission for Veterans and Citizens campaign that came in with $20. No other campaigns received donations for Wednesday.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Manuel Mata convicted. Officer Kruger fired. YouTuber BZ Watchdog reported in his Wednesday night livestream that YouTuber and First Amendment Auditor Manuel Mata was convicted of obstruction in Fort Worth, Texas. On Wednesday, just days after fellow First Amendment auditor Carolina and Fort Worth Rodriguez was convicted of similar charges. According to BZ, Mata was found guilty of interference and received 90 days in jail, a fine of $500, and was assigned anger management classes for interfering in an active investigation earlier this year. Mata received a PR bond upon indicating that he was appealing the decision. Mata was freed and his sentence will not take effect until after his appeal is heard. Conditions of his PR bond have not been released at this time. The activist's release is similar to what happened in Carolyn Rodriguez's case earlier in the week, as Fort Worth has a policy where nonviolent offenders in misdemeanor cases are freed as they await appeal of their sentences. Rodriguez also live-streamed on Wednesday and indicated that she was set to have been released from jail on Tuesday before being released on a PR bond on Monday. In her estimation, her sentence for obstruction would have been over on Tuesday due to credits given to nonviolent offenders in the Fort Worth jail, as the jail has severe overcrowding issues. The YouTuber stated that upon noting that she was set to be released, the judge in the case gave her a PR bond and changed the sentence in the case from time in jail to 15 months of probation, which was then suspended due to her announcing an appeal. Rodriguez described it as a grand conspiracy against her, as she would have been free from the case without limits on her auditing on Tuesday had the judge not changed her sentence. She pledged that she would return to auditing immediately, and the terms of her PR bond requiring her to stay 25 feet away from traffic accidents and active crime scenes would never come into play, as she assured her fans that she always stayed that distance away from police during her audits. Rodriguez was convicted of obstruction after she walked through an active crime scene earlier in the year and refused to follow police instructions to leave the scene. She has announced both an appeal of her charges and a future civil lawsuit against the city of Fort Worth. Multiple news agencies reported on Wednesday that the officer involved in Rodriguez's arrest in that incident was fired on Wednesday for using what was deemed excessive force against Rodriguez. Officer Matthew Kruger, an 8-year veteran of the Fort Worth police force, was fired on Wednesday after an internal affairs investigation showed that he used excessive force in his apprehension of Rodriguez, who was hospitalized after her head hit the ground during a struggle with Kruger during the incident. The investigation showed that Kruger's actions were unjustified and against department policy. Kruger had been transferred to a role that limited his public interaction during the investigation. Reacting to the firing, YouTuber BZ Watchdog claimed that Mata and Rodriguez, who both negative run-ins with Kruger in the past, will have new ammunition to have their convictions overturned and to win their pending civil cases against Fort Worth police. BZ Watchdog promised his fans that because the Fort Worth Police Department essentially admitted guilt in the firing of Kruger, the YouTubers may be able to establish case law to give First Amendment auditors new rights when dealing with police officers. This is a developing story.
DeCastro LVMPD lawsuit was not thrown out. Despite rumors circulating on Wednesday, Jose Chili DeCastro's lawsuit against the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police has not been thrown out and remains active as of Thursday morning. Rumors flooded forums across the internet on Wednesday following the release of YouTuber Mark Stout's video on his frauditors exposed. YouTube channel entitled Federal Court Dismisses Chili DeCastro's Claims Against Las Vegas Police. In the video, Stout makes it clear that he is referring to the September ruling by Judge Andrew Gordon that gutted a good portion of DeCastro's case but left standing major portions to go forward to trial. The rumor mill picked up Stout's poorly worded headline, and those who didn't watch Stout's video or pay any attention to news outlets like ourselves or PDocs the public documents of Chili DeCastro page ran with the story without verifying if it was true. A second motion for summary judgment was filed in the case in late October, with the LVMPD's latest filing coming just 2 days ago. That filing was a response to DeCastro's rebuttal of their motion. The judge has yet to rule on the motion, and even if it succeeds, the case is moving towards trial as DeCastro's claims of excessive force are not covered by the first or second motions for summary judgment. As of December 19, 2024, both Pacer and the court listener pages show no actions by Judge Gordon to throw the case out. Any action to do so would be unusual with the courts rushing to next week's holiday break and the fact that the last filing in the case was made 3 days ago. Plus, there would be a published record of it, the news would be everywhere, and the case wouldn't have moved forward past the first motion for summary judgment that Stout was reading in his video. While DeCastro himself has pledged that he would be filing a second lawsuit against the LVMPD, he cannot sue them again in the same federal district court for the same reasons as outlined in his existing active case. His claims that he's filing again, which he's been making for months now, only compounded the confusion with Stout's commentary and helped spread the rumor. Again, when in doubt, check our coverage. Check PDoc's page. If and when the original LVMPD lawsuit ends, we'll be the first to tell you about it. The actual documents will be posted on our site and in our forums, in Massholes forums, and there will be actual videos and real reactions flooding your feed with the news. While we all want the case to end, sadly, DeCastro's Constitutional Law Scholar board game has a better chance of coming out for the holiday than the case being dismissed before Christmas.
The angry vet lashes out at cancer in 1A community. Veteran and YouTuber Kevin, the angry vet, Soper live-streamed on Wednesday to address what he called a growing cancer in the First Amendment auditing community, while questioning his own mental health during the holidays. Soper is involved in an ongoing shooting war with fellow First Amendment auditor Christopher Direct D. Ruff, who has been focused on exposing Soper's the Servicemen and Citizens for American Rights Society, SCAR's, nonprofit group is fraudulent as it has not been registered with the Internal Revenue Service. Ruff has also been accused of making light of Soper's disabilities and PTSD suffered during his service in both the Navy and the Coast Guard. While not directly stating Ruff's name, Soper lashed out on the live stream about a cancer that has questioned his PTSD and allegedly revealed the nature of his PTSD and mental health issues. Soper said that he was concerned about his own mental health based on the attacks, and made it clear that he'll hold accountable anyone who exposes veterans' histories. He explained that calling out disabled veterans in a cruel manner serves as a death sentence this time of year, as the suicide rate for veterans is higher than normal. The veteran also said that his mental health problems were going untreated and he remained at an impasse with his healthcare provider, the local Veterans Administration facility, as the facility will not allow him to film on premises. Ruff took Soper's words as a threat against him, live streaming Wednesday night, featuring a picture of Soper, and asking if Soper was now threatening him. The problems between the two men have been an ongoing issue since the spring of this year. Ruff has highlighted their differences since the summer as part of his turn against the 1A auditing community. That turn has brought Ruff greater exposure and praise from those supporting First Amendment auditors and those who oppose them, with near universal praise coming from his listeners and his fearlessness and his ability to take on big names in the community in a negative fashion without suffering repercussions for his actions. Soper's plight comes as his annual SCAR's holiday fundraising event has failed to draw the attention needed to fund the society for the next year. While Soper had previously offered such things as having dueling campaigns for and against him cutting an inch of his hair off at a time as part of the campaign with a $1,000 goal, and the side that achieved that goal deciding on his haircut, things are bleak for his campaign, at least on the GoFundMe front. As it stands now, Soper's GoFundMe campaign has only taken in $70 since the start of the holiday campaign. A $20 donation came in after his live stream, which was the first donation in 4 days. This is an ongoing news story. Floyd Wallace suffers more humiliation as birthday ends. YouTuber Floyd Wallace's 29th birthday celebration ended in chaos Tuesday night as he live-streamed while waiting for a date to arrive who promised him intimate gratification without required payment. The date was on Wallace's mind as he passed the time waiting for her arrival by opening up a birthday panel, following a day where he rage quit and deleted 2 previous birthday-themed live streams due to what he called abuse from his listeners. His third live stream opened with Wallace making his usual off-color statements and revelations. Among them, he stated that he would rather self-pleasure on a regular basis than date a Black American woman, though he could be persuaded to try to date a Black American woman should his viewers pay him to do so. Wallace then got a viewer to bribe him to open a panel, which was open to all without Wallace's standard $10 to $30 charge for each panelist to appear in his presence. While the first few guests were complimentary to Wallace, he met more than his match when a female listener named Zed confronted him about his past lies. Zed demanded to know what happened to the supposed $20,000 he made off of his YouTube empire, He said he made for 1 month of YouTube revenue last year. She wanted to know if the rumors were true that he paid Austin Holloman to be involved in Holloman's Brazil trip, and if that was what the money was spent on. Wallace admitted that he exaggerated the $20,000 figure and claimed that he approached that amount for a single month in 2023 under very special circumstances. He said that since he was immediately shadow banned by YouTube, he has fallen on hard times and that he makes about $2,000 from his main YouTube channel each month. He denied paying Holloman to attend Holloman's trip to Brazil, but admitted spending money on food for Holloman and Holloman's other guests, and then blowing the rest of that money on stupid things. Wallace had previously admitted that he used to tell dates that he made $20,000 a month as a lie to get them to have intimate encounters with him. He claims he has stopped using the line, as he's been living in poverty since the shadow ban by YouTube. The YouTuber suffered a serious blow to his finances on Tuesday and into Wednesday, as he allowed other panelists to insult and degrade frequent financial contributor Social Owner. Social Owner responded by saying he was cutting off all funding to Wallace, which, if it stands, would be a devastating blow to Wallace's attempts to finance future sex tourism campaigns. Social Owner stood firm during Wallace's Wednesday afternoon livestream, which saw Wallace admit that he still hasn't paid the $106 he owes in probation fees and $250 he owes in fees for a traffic ticket in New Mexico. There is currently a warrant for Wallace's arrest in New Mexico over the delinquent payment. On the Wednesday live stream, Wallace was depressed that his birthday date did not work out, as he waited up to receive his intimate encounter and the woman did not show up to his Airbnb as planned. Wallace attempted to raise $100 for trip to Bogota, Colombia, but had no donations by the end of the show, as both Social Owner and frequent contributor Snow Travels refused to help Wallace achieve his goals. While waiting for contributions, Wallace took in a small super chat donation to explain the real story behind his breakup with a woman known as the Stud. Wallace, in a new version of the story, said that the Stud stole between 60,000 and 80,000 pesos, between $13.68 to $18.24 in United States currency, from him when he gave her money to give to one of her friends in need. After stating that the friend never received the money, Wallace went on to say that he gave the Stud $1,200 over the past year for her services as a driver, cook, maid, and intimate encounter partner. He then rated her intimate body parts and commented on her hygiene. Wallace brought the second live stream to an end after he demanded payment from his fans to learn Spanish. He said that if they wanted him to change his life so badly by learning the language, they needed to pay to watch him learn it before ending the stream.
Delete Laws announces multiple new projects. Jose Chili de Castro livestreamed twice on Thursday, once from downtown Los Angeles and another from his studio in LA, where he announced updates to multiple projects that he claimed to have going on in the LA area. This report will mainly focus on the first of the two live streams, as de Castro deleted the second stream, a discussion with attorney Michael Aline about reluctant profit, for unknown reasons. The live stream started with de Castro down the street from a car fire in LA, capturing an explosion coming from the car before de Castro assured his viewers that it was unoccupied. Spending a great bit of time examining the fire and the firefighters fighting it, de Castro narrated from the scene. He explained the process of dousing the fire using water and foam, going as far to explain that the smoke could be toxic, so he would be keeping some distance away from it. As the firefighters finished putting out the flames, they doused the car in essentially fire-extinguishing foam, which de Castro claimed destroyed everything and that the car parked behind the car that had been on fire would be damaged from the foam. Eventually losing focus on the fire, de Castro focused on his own adventures in LA. He explained that he moved back to California from Las Vegas as he had opportunities in the TV and movie industry. De Castro said that he had a First Amendment auditing-related pilot set to film in October that has been delayed until January. He also said he had funding for a series that had nothing to do with First Amendment auditing and had a backer who promised to fund the whole project. This apparently referred to mixed martial arts project that he was also working on. He bragged that he was seeking to make his name in the mixed martial arts world and said it would be his starting point to connect such names as Mark Bear and Dakota Wolf. The YouTuber excitedly added that he didn't anticipate it being done this year and was surprised that it would be done this year. Updating his weight loss goals, he claimed that since Thanksgiving, he has not eaten sugar, dairy, or processed flour. He has also done 3 48-hour fasts and 8 24-hour fasts and was losing weight quickly. DeCastro also claimed a hardcore workout on Thanksgiving cured him of depression and PTSD. DeCastro also renewed his pledge that he would be auditing next week and promised that he'd be sharing video of constitutional law scholar, which he says is 80% done, on Friday. No updates were provided to DeCastro's previous announcement that the board game would miss its previous Christmas 2024 release date. Update: DeCastro did not share video of constitutional law scholar on Friday to his public YouTube channels.
Hendry late in week collapse troubles market. The at one point almost unstoppable Craig Hendry string of wins came to an end on Friday as a lack of communication from the Hendry camp and little promotion outside of the Hendry sphere brought the juggernaut of a campaign to an almost dead stop. Hendry's to support Craig's work, fund took in $30 over Thursday and Friday to take second place for the two-day period. It was dwarfed by a single surprise anonymous donation to our ongoing expenses campaign that took Friday with a $1,000 donation. We've said it before and we'll say it again, a GoFundMe campaign is only worth the amount of promotion you put into it. Tomorrow we'll look at the campaigns we follow and provide reasoning behind why most of them are failing to bring in any donations in recent days. As far as our big donation is concerned, we were stunned and thankful to see it. It's been a difficult year and the outpouring of goodwill from all of you has been staggering. We will be investing it right back into the channel. The goal is to renew our domain and hosting for the year early, then take advantage of year-end lifetime sales to get rid of some of our ongoing expenses. We're finally starting to make a little bit of money off of our YouTube channel that we can reinvest back into the channel, and slowly, but slowly we're growing our presence and our revenue. We still can't make it without you at this point. So again, we're forever in your debt for the help you bring to our and the truckload of animals' lives. We absolutely are blessed by your giving, so thank you so much. Again, our goal for next year is to get to the point where we can be self-sufficient and still bring you the news 5 to 7 days a week. While supplies last, you'll know we've reached the goal when the next ad starts to disappear.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Rogue Nation guilty of Social Security Administration charges. First Amendment auditors George Rogue Nation, Metz, and Joshua, this is a public service, Gray, were found guilty of ignoring official signage and filming in a restricted area of a Social Security building on Friday. Both men were sentenced to 6 months probation and a $3,000 fine for essentially multiple counts of filming in restricted areas of Social Security Administration buildings in 2002 and 2023 after ignoring signage and being told by guards they were in areas they could not record. The charges stem from incidents on November 16, 2022, and January 26 and January 30, 2023, with both men being charged on November 28, 2023. They were charged after the so-called Court of a Doctrine went into effect as YouTuber Christopher Denver Metro audits Court of a Made Case Law with his guilty verdict for filming in a restricted area of a Social Security building earlier that year. According to attorney Patrick J. Darcy's analysis of the case, lawyers for the defense attempted to public and non-public forums, stating that there wasn't a clear boundary between public areas and areas where recording was restricted. This argument was countered by long-established case law indicating that a Social Security Administration building is typically classified as a non-public forum. The prosecution brought up Metz purposely lifting his camera to see over a barrier into a restricted area where social security cards are created in order to access the private area. There were also questions over photography versus videography, with the defense claiming that the signage stated that photography was prohibited, while videography was not mentioned on the signage. Ultimately, while the prosecution had asked for 30 days of jail time for the offenses, the judge in the case disagreed with the assessment and sentenced the men to probation with a fine. It is unclear if the verdict, or the related verdict in the court of a case, will deter auditors from recording in Social Security Administration buildings in the future. John Philax and a large group of auditors were on hand for the trial, including Lana from the J-Town Press and Rights Crispy. They protested the verdict after the hearing in an extended video posted to Philax's channel. The men have indicated that they will appeal the verdict and sentencing within the 14-day appeals window. The assembled group of auditors promised a swift victory and overturning of the judge's decision on appeal. The angry vet runs from phantom police officers. Fans became concerned on Friday as Kevin, the angry vet, Soper live-streamed after what he described as a threatening police encounter in Lexington, Virginia, where Soper claimed he was thrown out of a police facility. Soper explained that he was in the facility talking to a police lieutenant about auditing when the conversation became heated. Soper admitted that he hurled profanities at the lieutenant before the officer asked him to leave the facility. He claimed he did not have footage of his encounter with the police lieutenant as he didn't think fast enough to activate his camera while in the police station. The video began with Soper attempting to regain access to the facility and finding the front door locked. He again insulted the police officer, who was not present on the scene, for preventing him from re-entering the station. While in the parking lot, Soper found a female officer who was retrieving an item from her patrol vehicle. He demanded her name and badge number before attempting to question her about the incident that had just taken place inside the facility. A second female officer, identifying herself as a police sergeant, came out and retrieved the first officer, then promised to bring Soper a complaint form so he could file a complaint about what happened. After returning, Soper indicated that he was going to mail the complaint form back to the station along with an intent to sue notice. Soper said this was one of multiple pending lawsuits, and he would be looking to get footage of the incident. Things got strange after the sergeant left, as Soper became convinced that the police were circling him in their cars. No police cars were observed as Soper left the camera pointing at his face. Soper then ran to a nearby residence and took off his hat and bright orange hoodie and then ran to his vehicle, apparently purposely disguising his massive frame from the police. He kept live streaming as he again made it clear that he wasn't safe and only stopped and turned his GPS on a good 20 minutes later. This is the second incident in recent days where Soper has claimed to have encounters with police where the footage has been in question. The first of which was an early November run-in with police in Rock Hills, South Carolina. Soper claims to have suffered a brain injury in the Rock Hills incident, but has refused to release the footage from that incident due to legal concerns. YouTuber BZWatchdog and others have attempted to independently investigate that incident, only to come up empty. The same incident has been featured on Christopher Direct D. Ruff's podcast, with direct accusations made that Soper invented the incident in order to jumpstart funding for his ongoing SCARS fundraising campaigns.